Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to the life and chess games of Magnus Carlsen. So in this series we're following Magnus Carlsen's life, Magnus Carlsen's chess games through the career, and today I wanted to show you another great game from the Reykjavik tournament in 2004 in which Magnus Carlsen faced again the shark Garry Kasparov, the beast from Baku. So in my previous video we have covered already one game between Garry Kasparov and Magnus Carlsen in which Magnus Carlsen managed to get a draw only at the age of 13, which is an incredible thing. I think it was, a moment in which Garry Kasparov wasn't satisfied with his game. He ran out very angry when he drew with Magnus Carlsen. On the other hand, Magnus played really an aggressive game and really surprised, I think, the legendary Kasparov. But in the second game, Garry Kasparov, he played much more actively, much more aggressively against the young prodigy Magnus Carlsen and managed to get a win. But it's still, I think, nothing special to lose, of course, against Garry Kasparov. But the more important thing is to evaluate your strength. When you, for instance, win many games, then you get overconfident, then you start to make some opening deviations, then you try maybe to play more attractive, more aggressively. It's also sometimes important to lose in chess, I think. Losing against Garry Kasparov, as I mentioned, it's not such a big deal, but it was a very important thing for Magnus Carlsen, maybe to evaluate, maybe to see where am I standing, where I need improvements, where I have some room for improvements, where can I make some progress, and that's why I think it was also very important to lose games in his career in order to get a better understanding and better preparation in particular lines and in opening. So let's check out the game. Here Garry Kasparov played with the white pieces, Carlsen played with the black pieces, and Kasparov opened with the move c4. We have knight to f6 by Carlsen, knight to c3, and here after g6 Carlsen showed basically his cards that he's going into King's Indian. Kasparov played the move e4 and now d6. The preparation was of course to play e5 immediately, kicking away the knight, so that's why d6 is necessary here. d4 played by Kasparov, bishop to g7, and now after knight to f3 we have so far the classical system of the King's Indian. Castle played by Carlsen, and now bishop to e2. And here the most aggressive way and the best way is to proceed here with the move e5, and Kasparov played this Taimanov-Gligorić system, and I had so much troubles against this setup. I've heard many players giving up on the King's Indian because of this particular line, and my recommendation here is, if you are familiar more with the King's Indian, is not to go into this line knight to g4. It seems like a good move. It seems that you're attacking the bishop, but I think here bishop to g5 and after f6 we have simply the possibility here to play bishop to h4, and after something like knight to c6 now white can play the move d5, and after knight to e7 we can simply kick away the knight, h3, knight to h6 has to be played, and most of the times the King's Indian players have this knight on a natural square on d7, this knight on h6, then we're having the opportunity to play this knight again on f6. So this is still playable from black's perspective. For instance, still we can push the pawn on f5, but this bishop on h4 is very, very annoying. It creates always this pin. You have troubles with your queen, you have troubles with this knight, so this is not such a powerful attack, and I think Carlsen chose to play the best way against this Taimanov system. He played simply the move after the move bishop to e3, e takes d4. So this is my recommendation if you're playing as black against this setup of whites. Here after knight takes d4, now the best way I think is to proceed with the move c6, because one of the best ways to proceed against this Moroxi-bind setup is sometimes to crack the position with the move d5. This liberates really some more files, some diagonals, and in order to maybe hang on to this pawn-centric control that white has built here, white would be forced to play maybe some moves like knight to c2. But still, there is this possibility to play the move d5 immediately, and then rook to e8, getting this file open for the rook. And after the move c6, Kasparov went into a normal line, building really this Maroczy-bind setup with the move f3, trying to hang on to this pawn-centric control that we have. We have a very well-placed centralized knight, very nice activity with the bishops, and now castling. So this is really a battle of restriction immediately, because white has this very nice central control, but black has this powerful it's this Boleslavsky wall, that's how you call this pawn structure, in which we are basically restricting all of these 4 central squares for minor pieces, for white's minor pieces. And now the immediate preparation is to push the pawn finally on d5 and cracking the position in the center. So in the game, rook to e8 played by Carlsen, which is also a great move. After the move d5, if the position for the rook opens, then there are some tactical threats, and now Kasparov is forced to play the move bishop to f2. If you, for instance, play some passive moves like castling, it seems also like a natural move. Then d5 is an immediate possibility here for white. After c takes d5, here we have the possibility even to recapture with the knight. Knight takes d5, because you cannot take with the pawn. Your bishop is hanging, and losing dark square bishop in this position would be deadly for white, because then this bishop is the best minor piece on the board. So in the continuation, maybe knight takes d5 can be played, c takes d5, still you cannot take, e takes d5 because of the same tactical threat, and now queen to b3 would be sort of a tactical counterplay here by white. But now knight to c6, I think, solves all of the positional problems in black's position. So this is this line. If you, for instance, see that your opponent castles immediately, d5 is really a possible move. So that's why bishop to f2. So castling wasn't played by Kasparov here. He got his bishop out of this mess, out of this potential tactical mess of this rook, and here Carlsen played d5 anyway, opening the position, which is the most common idea. If your opponent has the king in the center, open the center as fast as you can. So here e takes d5 was played. We have c takes d5, and now c5 by Kasparov. It's very hard for black to attack this pawn, so you shouldn't go after this pawn. This pawn can be supported. Basically, white has built sort of a blocking system against this isolated pawn. The main idea to play against isolated pawn is to create a blockade. So far we are still in common theory of this Taimanov and Gligorić system of the King's Indian. In the game, knight to c6 played by Carlsen, and now simply castling played by Kasparov. And here knight to h5 played by Carlsen, also a good move. But I like this idea. If you have troubles, for instance, bishop to f8 is also a good move. After something like knight to b3, we have immediate possibility to push the pawn on d5, d4, and really simplify the position in an early stage of the game. Because if you take knight takes d4, we have the possibility bishop takes c5, knight to c6 can be played, but now bishop takes f2. First with the check, rook takes f2, and now after something like, I don't know, b takes c6, I think black has a comfortable game, as you have already restricted this very important square for the knight, so the knight cannot be activated. And still we have possibilities to play something like rook to b8, attacking the b2 weakness, and also trade off the queens, simplify the position. So I think black would be perfectly fine in this position. Okay, here Magnus played a more aggressive way against Kasparov, so he wasn't afraid to play against the beast from Baku. Knight to h5 with the possibility to play knight to f4. This is the square we're searching, and this is now very hard for white to defend even this position, because this knight is a little bit stuck to the defense of this e2. You see this rook is always attacking this bishop on e2. For instance, if we move somewhere the knight, maybe to a4 or something, then black can always takes, and if the queen takes, then the bishop is hanging on e2. So you have to be careful also from white's perspective. After knight to h5, here queen to d2, played by Kasparov, also regrouping a little bit, trying to keep the position compact, trying to get also the rooks into the game, try to really have a firm structure of these minor pieces. You have to have a good connection now, because Magnus Carlsen has opened this diagonal for the Darksquare bishop. This Darksquare bishop is really dangerous, and in the game, bishop to e5. Now Magnus is aiming here also maybe to play, if the position allows it, some queen to h4 idea. So far it's not possible, but after if you play, for instance, a passive move like a3 here, let's just imagine a dubious move like a3, then you get crushed immediately. You see how dangerous this setup is by black. Then we have immediate the possibility to play knight to f4, and kicking away the knight is not possible, because you get the fork knight to h3. You have to go somewhere with the king to g2, and now knight takes f2. You lost your Darksquare bishop, and if you lose the Darksquare bishop, it's really deadly. After knight to c6 has to be played. If you, for instance, take with the rook immediately, that's not good, because you lose your knight. So you have to take knight takes c6, bishop to h3. First this intermediate check. Now after king takes f2, now it's time to take out the knight. B takes c6, and now if you try to get with your rook out of the range of the bishop, then d4 is basically game over for white, because if you try knight to e4, then we have even the possibility to play the move d3, and there is one tactical threat. If you take, for instance, with the queen, if you try to simplify the position, then you get bishop to d4, and you see the king doesn't have any squares. You would be forced to bring the queen on e3, and you basically lost the game. So that's why after this move bishop to e5, here Kasparov didn't go into this a3 line or into this passive lines. He played this prophylactic g3, very important move to play this restriction move, because we're not allowing this knight to jump on this very active square on f4. If this knight comes on an f4, you see how deadly it can be. And now bishop to h3. Okay, the Magnus has attacked the rook, but it's not a problem. Now we have rook to e1. Now the idea is to simply hang on to our pawn central control here. We are trying to create further blockade with this rook. We want to have a compact position, as I said. After the move knight to g7, here Magnus Carlsen, I think, played the first mistake in the game. It wasn't the best of moves. I think the best way is to proceed here with the move a6. This is now a very important move, because you're not allowing one of these knights to jump on b5. This would be a necessary move, I think, for black, because then the idea is to jump with the knight on d6, and you have to give up your Darksquare bishop. With this Darksquare problems around the king, as I said, it's always dangerous for both sides to get rid of the Darksquare bishop. If you want to do that, at least you have to trade off your Darksquare bishop for your opponent's Darksquare bishop. But now a6 is sort of a must move, and Magnus Carlsen played the move knight to g7, probably with the idea to play knight to f5, attacking further the d4. But this moment here, after rook to d1 and rook to c8, still Magnus had the possibility to play the move a6. Well, the shark Kasparov uses the moment immediately and plays knight to b5, with the preparation finally to place the knight on d6, and this is very, very dangerous. So a6, it comes a little bit too late now. Knight to d6, bishop takes d6, c takes d6, played by Kasparov, and you see now the problems here, the Darksquare problems around the king. Although you're losing a pawn, but it's not such a problem here for Kasparov in this open position. Continuing with the bishop pair is perfectly fine. d4 played by Carlsen. Carlsen hoped here that Kasparov would also give up his Darksquare bishop, but of course Kasparov is not interested in these types of continuations. He played simply the move knight to e4, and you see now this is really a square that we want to occupy. If after bishop to d4, queen takes d4, knight to f6, the fork on the king and the rook, you see how dangerous now black's position is, as he gave up the Darksquare bishop. So you see how necessary this a6 move was, and here bishop to f5 played by Carlsen, and basically in this position it's game over for black, because here finally d7. Great move by Kasparov. If you take with the queen, of course, then you get the fork, knight to f6. So you have to take out with the bishop. Bishop takes d7, and now finally bishop takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and again there is this threat to play this knight to f6 idea in the game. Knight to f5 was played, but now you can pause the video and try to find the best next move for white. Basically it's game over after this move. Of course Kasparov saw that move. Queen takes d7. You cannot take with the queen, as you get knight to f6, again the fork, and white is continuing simply the game with one piece up. Here queen to b6 was played, but not a problem. We have simply good square for the king, king to h1, and now rook to d8 was played, again queen to f4, simply regrouping a little bit. We are piece up, so nothing special. Black basically doesn't have any counterplay, and now rook takes d1, queen takes d1, queen takes b2, again another problem, because here Garry Kasparov searches for simplifications, which is a good thing when you're piece up, of course. Rook to c2 was played, queen takes b2, rook takes b2, and now bishop to c4. Knight to d4 was played, but now simply rook to e3, and in this position Carlsen resigned. We can always try some knight to g5 ideas attacking this weak f7 pawn. So Magnus Carlsen, of course, recognized that he doesn't have anything left and he resigned here. Okay, great game. I think it was between the two best players in chess history, at least they're for me. Garry Kasparov and Magnus Carlsen for me are the best chess players in history. Maybe you will agree, maybe you won't, but okay, that's just my opinion. Here Magnus Carlsen showed a great opening preparation, but made this slight inaccuracies which Kasparov simply punishes. When you leave him opportunities to create dynamics, then really Kasparov is one of the best chess players in history. And Carlsen, on the other hand, as I said, was only 13 years old, so okay, it wasn't a bad thing to lose against Garry Kasparov. And also, in order to evaluate your strength, I think it was very important in Magnus Carlsen's career. Okay, meanwhile you can watch my other Magnus Carlsen's chess games from the series. Here's the link, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also watch my computer chess games, in which I show you Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, Stockfish games, and many more. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.